World building is one of those skills that sounds straightforward until you actually try to do it. You're basically building an entire world from nothing. The history, the rules, the culture, the magic, and somehow making it feel like it was always there. It sounds simple, right? It rarely is. Frieren just gets it. Its world feels so lived in, so real, that you forget that someone had to sit down and actually invent it. That doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, and the kind of creative mind that only comes from truly understanding your world. Kanehito Yamada's world building makes it all look effortless, from the original core idea to the mysteries behind it all, and how an entire world that never existed was breathed into life. I never put much thought into world building. It's not something most people think about on a day-to-day basis. I mean, other than content creation. The only thing on my mind right now is trying to get the golden arc in triangle strategy. I mean, without a guide, it's almost impossible. My gosh. After spending a couple days researching the process of world building, I just realized how much time, energy, and imagination goes into it. I've always been a fan of good storytelling, great storytelling, the kind that pulls you in and connects you on a deeper level than simple entertainment. It can be in any media really. Animation, TV, movies, video games. There's so many ideas out there and so many worlds that it really opens your mind to the sheer scale of human creativity. Great storytelling is possible only after the world is built. There are many steps to world building. It's really hard to pick out what works, what's important, and depending on where you look, Google, Reddit, some random blog, the number of steps ranges from 3 to 30. Look, I don't think you or I have the time to go over 30 world building steps, so to save you the trouble as well as my mental state, I'm going to condense them down to only 5 steps, or rather 5 layers. 5 layers to world building, and 5 lessons Frieren can teach every writer. First off, what makes a world interesting? What makes a world compelling? Better yet, what makes it worth someone's time? If you had to create a world, any world, and wanted to tell your friend about it in one phrase, what would you say? While you think about it, here are some examples. A city at the bottom of the sea. A young boy saving the world. The cure for mankind. Limitless potential. How trauma and loss can shape who someone believes they are. Or, one of my personal favorites, big monsters wrecking stuff. The core idea is pretty much the centerpiece of any great story, whatever it may be. It's the foundation that carries the narrative and serves as the underlying backdrop, driving the motivations and struggles of the main characters. Without it, the setting has nowhere to go, and neither does the story. I want to mention that the core idea in world building is an evolving process, especially in the early stages of development. It can shift left or right based on the tone and atmosphere you're going for. A shift can turn a tragedy into a comedy, and a comedy into something far darker. When creator Kanehito Yamada first pitched the series to Shonen Weekly Sunday, the core idea of Frieren was strikingly different. At the time, I proposed a one-shot gag manga based on my debut work. The reason I proposed a gag manga was because there was a relatively easy-to-understand criterion of whether or not it could be funny. And what came up was the first episode of Funeral Frieren. It's not a gag at all, I thought. But it wasn't a gag, but it was very interesting. Katsumasa Ogura, editor. And from those humble beginnings, the foundation for one of the most richly crafted worlds in modern anime. And since we're on the subject of fantasy stories need rules. Rules establish order, build immersion, and make sure the magic and conflict actually mean something. Frieren's magic system is a perfect example of this. It's structured, logical, and makes sense. Do you remember when Frieren was teaching Fern the fundamentals of long-range magic? You know, the magic lessons they did between learning ancient Elvish. Long-range magic comes down to 3 factors required of every mage: the amount of mana you possess, the power to shoot it, and the power to control it. Fern was exceptional with magic from a young age, gifted even, but mastering long-range magic, that took her years. Years of hard work, persistence, and not giving up, even when progress felt invisible. And when it finally came together, when she destroyed that boulder and proved to Hyder she could take care of herself, it meant something, because we watched her earn it. That's what rules do. They make the payoff real. If Fern destroyed the boulder, let's say, in a few days, it wouldn't feel like the turning point it was. Oh, and I want to mention Ubel real quick. Aside from her borderline sociopathic personality, which makes her one of the most interesting characters in the series, she possesses an ability that operates somewhat outside the standard rules of magic theory. Let me elaborate. In Frieren, magic is limited by what a person can visualize. There's a fundamental rule in the magic system. If you cannot visualize it, you cannot do it. It's one of those logic versus belief arguments, and I can make a separate video on all that altogether, but anyway. Most mages can't visualize cutting through defensive magic because they don't understand the complex math behind the spell. Only after analyzing the principles behind Zoltrak, it took humanity decades to refine defensive magic into its current state. Ubel, however, ignores all of that. If she sees something as cuttable, it gets cut down. Defensive magic, magical barriers, plot armor, it doesn't matter. Why? She simply believes. She visualizes it. Her perception becomes reality. Ubel's Rail Zaiden is one of the most terrifying abilities in the show, and it works precisely well here because the rules exist. Without the established limits of Frieren's magic system, Ubel's ability wouldn't feel nearly as unnerving as it does. Now we make our way to the third layer, conflict. Everybody loves conflict, and it's probably my favorite step to world building. We all know conflict is what turns a story into something you keep coming back to. It's what gives a story its edge. What pressure moves the world? Kingdoms at war, limited resources, class divide, monsters returning, political betrayal. Why I'm on the third playthrough of Triangle Strategy, I could go. A conflict that runs deep throughout the show is Frieren's stance on demons, and it didn't come from a textbook, it came from hundreds of years of first-hand experience. Her argument is clear, but chilling. Demons are not misunderstood creatures. They are not capable of reason or empathy. In her own words, they are monsters who learned human speech, and they only communicate with lies. Some would call it cynicism, or it's just pattern recognition. What makes this so effective as a source of conflict is Frieren doesn't just tell us this. The series proves it repeatedly throughout the story. Every encounter with a demon reinforces the same truth. You can't negotiate with them. You cannot trust them. You can only survive them. Making a world feel alive is one of the most enjoyable aspects of world building. At this point, you got your core idea. You've established the rules. You've built your conflict. Now it's time to turn it up a notch. This is where all those layers start working together, and at some point, without even realizing it, it transforms the audience from an observer into a resident. But how do you do that? Well, you take the map and start adding shit in. A dragon here, a demon there, whatever this fluffy thing is. Let's add another dragon. Oh, and a cow. Gotta have a cow. Maybe some blue moonweed, another bronze statue, mechanized lizard, giant ape.
2 hours later.
Huh. Not bad. They all add depth and character to the world of Frieren. Coupled with different landscapes and a begotten era of legend, it gives the world a heartbeat. One of the most charming parts of the series is Frieren's obsession with useless spells. And I wouldn't call them useless either. They're folk magic, spells passed down through generations of common people rather than developed in some high-level magic academy. Some of these folk spells are actually kind of useful. Think about it. A spell to turn red apples green. A spell to produce warm tea. Flipping the perfect pancake. And my personal favorite, a spell to locate stuff. Another way to make it all feel alive is focusing on emotion. It transforms a collection of dry facts into something authentic, familiar, and worth caring about. By the way, I enjoyed reading your guys' comments on Frieren's suitcase in my last video. It really is one of life's mysteries. Just like this guy. The fifth and final layer to world building, leave some mystery. I feel a lot of shows these days miss the mark on this, mostly due to lengthy exposition. Too much information can stall a story, and the pacing suffers. If you spend 3 days explaining the tax code of a fictional city, I've already closed off and went back to doom scrolling. Mystery allows you to keep the pacing tight. You only reveal what is necessary for the immediate story, while hinting at the deeper layers underneath. Here's an example. The 7 Sages of Destruction, the Demon King's most powerful direct subordinates. I don't need to know them all, at least right now. Season 1 gave us Aura the Guillotine, known for her scales of obedience. Great fight, by the way. In Season 2, we learned a little bit more about the other sages. Several of them were killed, and the remaining survivors were either sealed off or went into hiding. What happened to them? Who knows? But that's the point. It leaves a sense of wonder. The hero of the South, mysterious and powerful. He was in a 1v8 fight against the sages, and still stood his ground against impossible odds. He is certainly deserving of the title. And there you have it. 5 layers, 1 legendary world, a show that took a simple concept and turned it into something extraordinary. Frieren's world is proof that greatness lives in the details. We started with the core idea, 1 sentence making a world worth caring about, the seed everything else grows from. From there, the rules, the magic system making every spell feel earned, every limitation feel real. From Fern's years of mastering long-range magic to Ubel's Rail Zaiden, a reminder rules create structure, and structure is what makes the payoff mean something. Conflict, Frieren's unwavering stance on demons, conflict shapes who a character is and what they stand for, bringing a world to life. The folk magic, the statues, the maps, the landscapes, the small details most people walk right past. A world is a place with a history, a heartbeat, and a life of its own. And finally, the mystery. The things Frieren leaves open. The Seven Sages, the hero of the South, the forgotten spells and the roads yet to be traveled. A world worth its salt keeps asking questions, making you want to dive back in all over again. Kanehito Yamada understands something rare in world building. A world is built slowly, carefully, with intention. Every detail serves a purpose, and nothing is there by accident. See, that's the thing about great world building. By the time you notice it, you're already in too deep to leave. Thanks for watching. And as always, remember to save your progress. Every great world starts with a single idea. If you made it to the end of the video, please consider liking and subscribing. It really helps the channel. Thanks.